ProRes RAW from a Sony versus Red R3D files. What's up everybody, Anthony Serratelli here of Jersey Filmmaker, and today I want to bring you a comparison of the ProRes RAW codec and Red R3D files. Let me explain how this test came about and why I didn't dive into too much detail, but the little bit that I did showed us a lot. I own a Sony FS5 that outputs a RAW signal, so I have the ability to record ProRes RAW. The only problem is I don't have a recorder that can record the ProRes RAW. I use a Convergent Design Odyssey 7Q+. The only recorders that record a ProRes RAW signal are the Atomos Shogun Inferno and the Atomos Sumo 19. Luckily, I recently had a job that required having both of those on set, so I had to rent them, which was awesome. I would have them in my possession. So the shoot was set for Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day last week, and being that it's a holiday weekend, not too many shipments, if any, go in and out on those weekends, so I had to have the rental gear shipped to me and delivered by that Friday. Unfortunately, I had a shoot in New York City that day, so I didn't get back home until 9 p.m. to finally get to the gear and unbox it and check it out. The first thing I had to do was test all the stuff and just make sure it was gonna work for my shoot on Tuesday, because if the Teradeks weren't sending signals or a monitor didn't work, I had to figure out how to replace that. So that took a few hours, and at about midnight, I was exhausted, so I called it a night and went to bed. That Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, being the holiday weekend, was packed with family and friend gatherings, so I didn't get to play with the gear at all. I got home Monday night and packed up everything for my shoot, which was Tuesday morning in Philadelphia. So pack up, go to sleep, get up early, and go. Shot all day in the sun, as you'll see, in Philly. Came home, was again exhausted, but still wanted to snag a couple quick shots. So that's what I did. I literally snagged a few quick shots just to see what this ProRes RAW codec does. So it was a huge bummer that I had this gear in my possession for like 5 days and didn't get to do a full range of tests with it, but I did get a few shots off, which became really important, and got to compare them to Red RAW code files, which is a codec I enjoy using, so I wanted to see the comparison. So let's hop over to the computer on Final Cut Pro, because that's the only NLE that supports the ProRes RAW codec so far, and see what we're working with. All right, over here in Final Cut 10, as you can see, I downloaded the trial. I don't have the full license. I actually do have a full license. I just don't know where I put it. That sounds pretty stupid, but it's true. So I'm gonna work on that. So anyways, here in the trial, doesn't matter. We're gonna go over to File, New, Library. I've already created a folder, ProRes RAW versus R3D test. So I'm gonna call this ProRes RAW versus R3D. And we're going to store everything in there. There's two things you want to do. This is the most important here, is you want to go over here. You have to be clicked on your project, or on your library. Go over here and modify the library properties, and we must go to wide gamut HDR, or this ProRes RAW stuff will not work. So we'll change that. And the second thing I like to do is hit Command, comma, and go over to import. I go to leave files in place. I hate that Apple, like iTunes, and obviously Final Cut, anything Apple creates, they seem to like to copy stuff into another folder. So you duplicate, it literally duplicates every file, and these files are big enough. We don't need any of that nonsense. So I like to leave files in place. These I think are click to start. I undo these as well. I don't know what all this tagging, keywording stuff really does for you. So I undo those. That's just a personal preference. So that's the second thing. So now we can import our media either by clicking on that button or Command I. Here are my files. I'm already in my footage folder. I know which ones I need here, so I'm just going to go ahead and select those and import selected. Here they are in our project now. We will have to go ahead and create a new project, and let's do again ProRes RAW versus R3D. 1080 HD, all looks good. 2398, Apple ProRes. This is all good for now. This is simple. I'm not going to be rendering anything, so as long as these fit in this timeline, that'll work. So that starts our timeline, and the first one I'm going to go to is, this is the ProRes RAW file. Okay, so let's drag this into the timeline. As you can see, I completely overexposed it, and this has been the big thing. Everyone sees that you're bringing back the highlights, you're bringing back all the information from images looking like this. And it does work. Check this out. If we go over here to the color wheels and we go to the master exposure and we drag this down, we get all the information back. I mean, minus right here on the tip of my nose and some in here, but I really overexpose this. we're getting all this information back, which is absolutely crazy when starting from here. So don't mind my face, it's a little red. I was outside in the sun shooting all day, and that's what I get for not wearing sunscreen. So again, look at this, amazing. I mean, this is all I need to show you to just get an idea of what this codec does. It's pretty crazy. I did test the other way. I'll pull that in real quick, and I went with, let's drag that out. I went with underexposing, and you can see already the footage is very noisy. I keep going down even further, I believe, and it doesn't recover this. So it's not like you can go over here to your color wheels and pull the exposure up and you get everything back. It only seems to work for overexposing, which is cool, but it would have been really, really cool if somehow you were able to recover from shooting in the dark as well. But I'll take the highlight recovery. So let's just get rid of this because that doesn't do us much good. So now I want to compare these to red files. So I had a couple red files here that I overexposed as well. If we go and try to do the same thing in the color wheels and pull down the master exposure, you see it doesn't work the same. It's not recovering highlights. We can't see anything, no detail. So we put this back. The difference here is I shot this in RAW, obviously. So if I go over here to modify RAW settings, I did shoot this at ISO of 3200 to overexpose this. So if I drop this down to 320, you can see that I get my information back. You can see every gray and orange in my beard. But if we went back to 3200, you can't see much of it, and we're losing a lot of detail, obviously. But it is recoverable because I overexposed this by pushing the ISO, which is kind of cheating because everything else was kind of correct as far as my aperture and my shutter speed and those types of things. So in order to combat that so I didn't get any naysayers, I did another shot where I was exposed correctly and I blasted a light off of my face right in front of me just to see. So now we're at a regular, as you can see here, we're at 320 ISO, so we're at a normal level, and we're going to go over to the settings over here again to the color wheels and try to do the same thing and pull this down. And will it work? No, it will not. So unfortunately, it doesn't work the same with red files. You can't recover like you can these ProRes RAW files. I really don't know what it is and how it works, but it does. They are recoverable in every way. It's pretty crazy. I don't know what to tell you on exactly how these things are working within the codec, but they are. That's a little bit of a mystery to us still. I don't see ISO settings. I don't see. It's just kind of a general exposure setting, so I don't understand quite what it's doing to be able to recover this stuff, but it's working. It's pretty cool. I'm excited to see where this goes in the future. It's a bummer to me that it's only in Final Cut because I don't like Final Cut, but one day it will be in Premiere. Just wanted to show you this real quick. Very interesting. So red files are not able to do the same thing that these ProRes RAW files are doing. So RAW Red, RAW ProRes. ProRes is kind of taking the cake, especially when maintaining highlight detail when overexposed. I mean, way overexposed. So hopefully, I mean, honestly, you shouldn't be overexposing this much in general, but I guess if somehow you ran into the situation and you're shooting in ProRes, then you'll still have something to work with, and that's great. And if you have something that's super dark, like shooting down a tunnel and you see the sky in the background, and you're able to expose for the inner part of the shot so that you get detail in the tunnel, but then in the highlights you can start to bring those down. Things like that would be really cool. So it does supply a very high dynamic range per se. So that's pretty neat. And the other thing I do want to point out is the file size though. So let's take a look at that. If we go over here and we look at our R3D files, I shot this at a 10:1 ratio, and these clips are about 15 seconds long each, comparing to the one ProRes RAW file that I'm going to show you. This clip is 1.06 gigabytes at 10:1, and if we go over the ProRes RAW, the same length file is 2.59 gigabytes. So these things are pretty big. I did shoot this at ProRes RAW HQ, which is the higher level of ProRes RAW. There's also ProRes RAW. I don't know what size that file was. I didn't shoot one, unfortunately. I was pressed for time. But this is twice the size of a 10:1 file, which I'm comfortable shooting at on red. So if I ended up being more comfortable shooting at the ProRes RAW, not ProRes RAW HQ, maybe they'd be more comparable, but right now it's literally more than twice the file size. So a lot of information retained. If you're gonna crazy overexpose, definitely gonna take up a lot of media space. But very cool that this codec does this. I'm impressed. I don't know if I'm gonna use it much yet, especially like I said, being in Final Cut. But either way, really cool what they've done, and look forward to seeing what else they do with it. So as you just saw, pretty crazy what this ProRes RAW codec can do as far as retaining highlights. I'm interested to see how this really does work and what else it'll be able to do and when it'll be released on Adobe. That is very interesting to me. I hope it gets thrown to the Adobe users a lot sooner than later. But as time goes here and we learn more about this codec, or I learn more about this codec, I'll throw that information your way. So when I know, you'll know what I know when I know. So if you like this video, help me out and click this like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. You could click that little bell to get alerts to all future episodes as well. If you have any comments or questions, you can of course leave them below or contact me on any of my social medias, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, at Jersey Filmmaker. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to get out there, don't wait, go create, and I'll see you next time.